Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome, magical ones. Today we are diving into the power of cyclical wisdom, and I've noticed just how often my women deny their cyclical nature, which for magical women is crucial to embrace. It's alive for me to invite you, therefore, into deeper harmony with the moon's rhythms by embracing the cyclical wisdom of the moon. And we have a couple of opportunities to do that in our work here. Each month we host the free Manifesting with the Moon ritual for new moon in the Secret Witch group. But what we haven't often shouted about is the ritual we prepare each month for you that gets sent out in our newsletter, along with all the juicy resources that help you take the aligned actions to keep walking the path. Each full moon you're invited to take part in our Connection Creatrix's full moon ritual, and then let us know how it went and what it created for you in our group. Enroll and take part in our 3-day Secret Witch Visioning Challenge too at www.nicolebarton.co.uk/sign-up. On the Secret Witch Show today, our guest is Alexandra Pope. Alexandra and Sjanie Hugo Wurlitzer are the co-founders of Red Skull, authors of the Hay House books Wild Power and the soon-to-be-released Wise Power. Discover the liberating power of the menopause to awaken authority, purpose, and belonging. They spent over 10,000 hours researching and refining their radical new approach to health, creativity, leadership, and spiritual life. And the best bit, it's rooted in the bloody, wild, radical power of the menstrual cycle and menopause. Their new book is being released on the 20th of September 2022. In this magical episode, Alexandra and I explore menopause as a powerful initiatory portal for reclaiming power and the potential of our souls, diving into the wise woman archetype and how it is an especially potent one for the witch, as well as how we can reframe the cultural narrative around menopause to rediscover its hidden medicinal gifts. Whilst this episode is framed around the menopause, it's really one full of gold for any woman to listen to, because it's really all about the power of initiation into soul. Let's dive in. Welcome, Alexandra. I am so delighted to have you here to explore the magic found in the menopause. I've been a huge fan of yours and Sjanie's for a long time, since reading Wild Power and also meeting Sjanie at a festival that we were both leading workshops at. So I really couldn't adore your work more. And I'm really excited that you've got a new book coming out, Wise Power. Yeah, and I know so many of our secret witches are wise women. So I have a sense that this conversation is going to hold so much gold for both these women that are navigating menopause, but also I have a sense that embodying the wise woman archetype for women who aren't even at menopause yet, there's going to be so much gold as well. So yeah, welcome. I'm so pleased to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I'm very touched. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's dive in. So yeah, I think the way that I often invite my guests to begin is through their own journey, and so I'd love to hear, particularly with regards to the menopause and the wise woman kind of journey, what your own journey has been with that, and of course your journey with creating your book as well. So yeah, maybe we can start there if that feels aligned.
We certainly can. So my journey with through menopause and evolving, my journey of evolution through menopause. Well, the interesting thing is that it felt, I'm going to use a word that perhaps those in menopause may not like me using right now, but it felt smooth in the sense that it felt, what I mean by smooth, there was a kind of orderliness at work. And I mean, it wasn't without challenge. I mean, the things we write about in our book, Wise Power, the sort of psycho-spiritual challenges that one encounters at menopause to be able to awaken the power that's available for us, demanded something of me. But I suppose when I say it felt smooth, I did not feel shocked by menopause, because many people sort of feel, one woman said she felt like she was being hit by a 2x4 out of nowhere, wham, straight into her. I had none of that. And I think my so I felt evolved into menopause psychologically, and also, I mean, even physically it wasn't a sort of shock. And there's a very important element here for me, which is that I had been practicing cycle awareness for years, and as my means of um, self-care initially to heal menstrual problems, which erupted, just before my 31st birthday, the menstrual pain from hell, as I call it. And actually, all our work at Red School evolved out of my radical decision to trust my body and believe in it. So I mean, where that came from at the age of 31 is sort of slightly miraculous, but I did. So I guess there was some kind of fundamental trust at work in me, some kind of grace or magic, Nicole. And I, of course, was very committed to the cycle because I was committed to not having pain anymore. And that process of staying really close to my cycle became then a habit, even as I'd healed the pain, and then I it was just a way of life. It was, all the things that we write about in our first book about the power of the menstrual cycle, was so powerful for me. I wasn't going to abandon that just because I was no longer in pain. So I was really relishing the menstrual cycle. I was really inside something, and I had a trust in it. And so all through my 40s, I was not thinking, oh, menopause is coming. I never ever thought that. And even into my 50s, and even when my cycle was breaking up, and I wasn't quite sure when it would come, my bleed, I always had a regular cycle. That was one really great thing about it with the pain. It was regular and I could plan for the pain. So when that regularity broke up, and I might go for 2 or 3 months or a bit longer or even shorter, I didn't sort of go, oh, this is menopause, help. I felt inside something is the best way I can say it. And then there was a moment, I suppose, when I went, yes, I'm in menopause, but it wasn't a number. So that's what I mean about there being a kind of smoothness to it. And I mean, I remember at 48 having these very particular radical thoughts, and um, which I regarded as the call of my soul saying, menopause is going to come, start to get your act together about what's going, you will change everything you see at menopause. And I got the instructions, if you like, about the change at 48. It was so graphic and so clear. It was, stop being a therapist and move back to the UK. I was living in Australia, and I had been living there for about 19 years by then, so I had a whole life there. So I got this instruction, and I went, holy bajolly, how am I going to do this? I just need self-employed. I've only, psychotherapist, that's what I do. But I knew it was over. I had actually been developing this menstruality work, which of course is what that's absolutely my be all and end all of what I'm doing. Um, but it wasn't a living. There was nothing in the UK. It was today, this work is everywhere, but then it was, and that was, 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago. But I got the call, if you like. I got the instruction, I had been doing this menstrual work, for a number of years already, just in Australia, but in a low-key way alongside my therapy practice. So from that thought at 48, it took me 7 years, and then from then to landing on UK soil and making that whole change. I just said, okay, I basically said, I'm all yours, universe, and I just held the line. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing, but I just had this intention and focus. And I suppose that, there was a kind of extraordinary magic at work, synchronicities coming out of nowhere. So these synchronicities, one after the other, it was freaking mind blowing sometimes. But they were like clues to me, Nicole, of that something other, bigger, was at work. And so that this was another thing that contributed to this sense of smoothness, that I had a feeling I was being held and stepped through something. And yes, so that's quite a long answer to your question. I mean, I will just say that one, I did not have children, so my time was my own. And if you want a decent menopause, you've got to have resources and time and space for yourself. And it's really challenging that if you've still got children at home, teenagers or even younger. That's my heart goes out to those that do whilst they're navigating menopause. Um, and also, I had done a huge amount of work on my health over the years and healing my menstrual pain. So I had all these really strong healthcare practices in place. So my health was actually in the best place it had been for years because I'd had suffered all sorts of things in the past, chronic fatigue and etc. etc. It's boring. Don't want to go there. Um, my goodness me, I had a discipline of self-care, and so it was those two things. This, I was resourced. I've got this self-care in place, and I was connected in. I had was connected to my cycle, and I had a trust in that, and yeah, it, it sort of unfolded.
I love that. There's so many places I could go in this now that I say this every time. It's like there's I'm like, which strand do I follow first? So let me just feel into that because first
Yes,
of all, that's a really magical story of like deeply, deeply trusting your soul.
it was that. Yeah, yeah, it was that.
Yeah, and your soul it sounds to me like your soul essentially came here to be the wise woman. So um yeah, so that's absolutely amazing. And I think a lot of women will resonate with the chronic fatigue element of your story as well, because I know for sure that was part of my own journey. It's often a thing that
Of
is
course,
part of,
yes. Mm.
yeah, it's often something that is part of the secret witch, who often kind of, yeah, is I would say often initiated into that wise woman in that kind of really slowing down and listening to their bodies. But it's also something that feels like one of the greatest challenges for my women as well.
You are so right. You see, I had developed this discipline of, this is really significant what you've just said there. Um, in a way, I understood something about initiation because struggling as I had with health and how it had limited me, and believe you me, I'm an ambitious person, so I can tell you the rage of being thwarted like this. And huge rage I used to have towards my body, heartbreaking. And and I I had I either go on raging and be a victim of it, or I had to turn to my body, okay, and say, and I almost want to cry saying this to you, um, body, yeah, okay, so I'm going to make meaning. This is meaningful. This is who I am, and I am going to let myself be touched and moved and worked by you. It's deeply challenging to go into this deep impotency, powerlessness, and to trust that there's something meaningful at work because it's hard to earn a living. I mean, I didn't have someone looking after me. I was earning my own way.
Mm.
And actually, I was self-employed a lot of that time, and which was had its plus side and its more challenging side. There was no sickness pay if I didn't work,
Mm.
but at the same time I could control my time, which was a grace. um yes, that was that thing of being willing to drop my egoic agenda, because boy, does illness put a spanner in the works of one's egoic agenda, and have to just deeply drop into myself and be with what is rather than pushing for what I wanted. It was such a radical working of my soul, Nicole, and really that tooled me up, if you like, brilliantly for letting menopause work me and let menopause guide me and yeah, it was the bedrock of my capacity to trust menopause as well.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I love how you illuminated that as like having a choice between being victim to that or harnessing it to really use that wisdom that was there and allow it to move through you and allow soul to just, yeah, to be the
Yeah,
guide.
it really requires trusting the unknown, because it's just you surrendering yourself to the unknown and what's going to come through. Well, as it turns out, all the menstruality work we are doing.
Yeah, that's a deep example of the beauty of yeah, soul, how it weaves its wisdom. But yeah, there's something so powerful in that, and especially for my women, because the way that I see it is that we're kind of always creating. It's almost like we've always we've actually also created the chronic fatigue unconsciously in order to have that experience. So yeah, that feels deeply significant. And I know of my own experience, it is that thing that kind of had me in my own initiation into Wise Woman, which I suspect is then why you've had this really smooth experience in some ways of the menopause, because ultimately that is the Wise Woman archetype, isn't it?
It is. It's really interesting. I think it would be good to just unpack in the moment
Yeah.
that
Mm.
phrase, that archetype, the wise woman archetype. What what are we referring to here I just want to really feel into that, because of course we call our book Wise Power. Um, I want to say it's not for the faint-hearted at some level, because um, I think, wow, you put me on the spot because it's such a big archetype, this, and I want to be able to do its service, but I think it's a form of intelligence, Nicole, or it's an intelligence that is informed by a willingness to let oneself be broken open and to trust apparent powerlessness, to trust in being taken uh, off the kind of known path. And that really is the known path is our sort of egoic agenda of how to live and one's own will to direct one's life. And by the way, that's a really powerful power, that, and important that we have also that feeling of some kind of agency, and you need to have some kind of egoic identity. That egoic identity, you need that for you need to have something to then be broken, because if you are punctured and there is no sense of self, it's madness, really, and madness is not a place to be. So but it is to let oneself be touched by life instead of one and staying with one's willful agenda, and crossing that line, surrendering. It requires surrendering. Crossing that line is huge, and it's probably taken me, all my life of, it's taken real psychological muscle.
I love that you, yeah, I love that you share that actually, and it reminds me of the way that I describe it is almost like that soul will rather than like personal will. It's like the will of our soul, like submitting to that will, that kind of almost that co-creation between the universe and our soul, if that makes sense, which is kind of the same thing, but I think that's
It is exactly that, Nicole. And the the what it takes to let go of one's own will, to open oneself to a bigger calling. Um, the yes, the soul's will, as you say, to that is uh, is huge. It really demands something because, and this is where menopause comes in, because menopause really grows your capacity to handle the charge of that. Because that, to be able to be a channel for something greater than you, what you're doing is you're opening to spiritual forces, and you've got to, one, be able to handle the charge of that. And I am by nature an ecstatic, but to be able to handle that ecstatic charge within my mundane life, within my physical body, was, maybe I'm kind of getting a handle of it now. It's quite a process, and also it's very big power, and where there's power, you need a lot of responsibility, self-responsibility.
mm, yeah, I
Because
so
you
feel
can,
that.
you can still abuse power. I mean, if you're not taking responsibility for things, you don't get a get out of jail card when it comes to, fucking up around how you use your power. Excuse my language, sorry.
I love that.
You know,
No,
we
I really.
we can still be unconscious, go unconscious, and yeah, be unaware of things. So it's a demanding archetype, I think.
Absolutely. And yet it seems so kind of key to the witch as an archetype, who's very much in that kind of cyclical wisdom and her creation.
Very much. I mean, it's a process. I mean, I think of it as a process. You don't suddenly become that archetype. It's a process over, years and years and years. And it is it's a relational intelligence. It's an intelligence that is sourced from body, being, and
Mm,
the your connection. It's relational, to the physical earth, to the spiritual forces, to nature itself, and to the times that you live in. And it's like being a channel for something, but it requires huge presence to all those different elements. And you are, I think of that wise woman archetype as someone who has the capacity to work with the unknown, with the emergent forces, like, allowing things to come to you that are serving the future. It's really serving the future. It's not serving our own egoic agenda, it's serving something bigger. And you're really working with energies. And yeah, I feel like now, post-menopause, I mean, I like my intellect. I've got a very strong mind, but I'm very aware now that uh, of really being present to very subtle energies and serving that. I can't say it any more clearly, but it's like you're being informed by something bigger than you.
yeah, I really love that. That speaks to me so deeply, that yeah, that's being informed by something greater. Or something deeper, that soul calling.
That's right. That's all called it. This incredible magic that happens with that. I mean, what looks like magic, but actually, I mean, to sort of, but except that it's very, there's very real work going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is, to me, it is magic. Magic to me is really things that just can't be explained by science yet, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And yet there is, when you're in this archetype, it's immensely obvious, and it's a very practical way of working.
Mm. I love that. I think I was just chatting to you before we began about how I think it's really important to only teach what you've embodied. So I was just saying to you before, obviously I haven't experienced of the menopause, but there is some kind of which is why I was talking about the wise woman, because I do have some experience of that, given the kind of there's a wise woman element to our cycle each month as well. So I do have some kind of
Yes,
experience of that. But
exactly.
I think I would love to hear more around your upcoming book, because it said very much around Wise Power rewriting the cultural story of menopause. So I'd love if you could tell us a little bit more about that and what the new story is.
Well, the kind of dominant cultural story that is there at the moment is very much one of menopause as a somewhat as a I suppose as a kind of affliction.
Yeah.
It's it's almost that it's that it's I want to say it's a problem. It feels like a problem. You see, that's the trouble. It does feel like a problem, but if because we're not prepared for it. But it feels, you know, it's seen as a kind of health condition that we suffer from. And you know, it's like poor women or poor people who menstruate. Um, you know, they've got this, you know, terrible affliction. And now, um, at least in the UK, at least there is a fabulous conversation going on at high levels. I mean, right up to the government, you know, what's happening in Parliament. It's amazing. There's some terrific people out there who are just, and they're celebrity, you know, celebrities or well-known people who are going through menopause and going, what the, you know, we need a proper conversation about this. So I am eternally grateful for that. And so there is that going on, which is good, but it is seen as a sort of this problem, and that sort of knocks us off our pedestal, and that we need help to kind of cope with it, and also that it's a kind of deficiency. You know, we're losing estrogen, and that's a deficiency, that's a problem. So let's top us up with each estrogen so we, you know, can go on the same as before. And the thing is, our bodies are designed for menopause.
Mm.
It's part of our, you know, design. We're not, and so much of the suffering today is because we live in a society that doesn't value cyclical consciousness in general, does not value the menstrual cycle, because the menopause is the final chapter of a long journey that began at menarche. And if people understood that, and we describe that in our book, if people understood that, my belief is that they would feel what I felt if they were appropriately resourced, I must add, and not everybody is. They would feel this an evolution into menopause that is dignifying. And yes, there's a challenge because it is a rite of passage, it is initiatory, and initiations demand something of us. You go through a death and rebirth. Um, you know, you're different when you come out the other side. You're a different person. You're going to change everything about your life. And you're actually stepping into an even bigger kind of vessel of yourself, a bigger container. So your power is not diminished, your power is expanded, and it's understanding the nature of that power and what's required to be available to use that power in a way that is powerful and not destructive of you or, you know, people around you. And so, you know, too often I see postmenopause women being just dismissed. Oh God, does that enrage me? And um, as somehow a bit man. And it's, you know, it's because, oh, that's a whole other story. I don't think I should go there. But it just enrages me because, in fact, they hold something very potent, but they have not been supported in it properly. So
Yeah. Oh.
the energy doesn't feel great. It can be destructive if you don't know how to meet it. Um, yeah. I
So
don't know.
much in that, so much in that. I just got so many goosebumps as you were talking there, just like like wow, this is yeah, this is so needed in the world, your work to be kind of guiding women back into their power through the initiation of the menopause. And it kind of is very similar to much of the work that I do in terms of the entire blood mysteries, and I'm currently actually leading a program called Invoke Your Feminine Mystery, which is guiding women through all the various blood mysteries to reclaim their lost power through each phase. And that's because, as you were speaking, it was very much reminding me of my own kind of initiation into my power, which was through the portal of birth, actually. And again, it was like very much seeing that needed to happen for me to be able to reclaim the lost power. So my sense is that that's sort of what you're talking to there around the menopause being that kind of initiation into women really owning their power and becoming who their soul came here to be.
That is it. It is about really stepping up to who you truly are. That's what the gift of menopause is, finding, really getting it about who you are. It's like, oh wow, wow. And who you are not, and letting go of all the bits that are, and that happens first. So there's an awful lot of destruction, inverted commas, you know.
Yes, I love that. I was actually just thinking as you said that, oh, I'd love to hear more about the who you are not bit.
Well, it's just so self-evident when you get to menopause. You just find yourself shedding stuff. It was like the realization not to be a therapist anymore. I didn't know what was going to replace it. I just knew it was done. It was done, and that was not my work in inverted commas. Um, and um, so you just find yourself saying no to lots of things, to relationships, to jobs that you've done, or to stuff in your life. You will just release lots and lots of stuff, and but you don't quite know what you're replacing it with yet. You just know what you don't want around, and it's
Oh, I
almost
love that.
you're clearing space really to find yourself again, to really feel yourself without, because you have to sort of shed all these identities that you've lived by. And that is kind of unnerving, because you might have invested a huge amount in that. And it's not that, I think of all my years of being a psychotherapist, all those skills are with me still. It's just I'm not a therapist. I can't do that kind of work now. But the skills I cultivated inform everything I do now. So I've got a whole skill set I brought with me, but a kind of identity, a role. That was not me anymore. That was not how I could express who I was, or kind of really release who I was, uh, Nicole. Um, so yes, you're doing an awful lot of releasing, and then you create this empty space, really, essentially. It's like you do. I mean, I paint it in a very literal way, and we're not literal beings, and menopause is, not doesn't look. But if I was to sort of kind of summarize it a bit, it is that you clear this space really, and you're in, and you're first of all, you're having to recover yourself, like, and I can just so remember the moment of going, oh, this is who I am. Wow. This recognition of who I was. Stuff I knew already, but it's an extraordinary revelation at such a profound level. It's almost like you really imprint something right deep down in your being. And as you just have that revelation of yourself, then you create the channel by which your calling, the work of your soul, can flow through in a way that it could not before.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, what I really love about that is the kind of really like the energetic of that no. Like I can really feel how you describe that. It's like no, that kind of is, yeah, very, very much standing out to me around the kind of gift of the menopause. Um, yeah, I love that. And yeah, so much in that.
There's a real precision at work. in your being. Your being has this discernment, a precision. No, 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 it's not this, not that, not this. And your sort of, egoic brain side of you is going, what the, what? Quick, batten down the hatches. We've got to have something. We've got to earn a living. We've got to do, yeah. And you're damn right. You still have to have a living because, I know people who've just woken up one morning and gone, I'm out of here. I'm resigning from my job. It's so compelling. And you don't want to leave yourself. And it really is fierce, by the way. And you need to be smart because you don't want to leave yourself with nothing. And where this came from, but for some reason, well, I did not have a lot of resources. I was brilliant at saving. And I had this sense of, being patient with, how I used my money, just being really patient. And so when I came to menopause, I didn't have a lot of sort of worldly stuff, but I had managed to save money. And of course, when I moved and I, arrived in the UK, I didn't have a job. I was creating it, and no one knew they needed the menstruality work yet. And I had these resources, and then I had all these synchronicities that were support that helped me in those early years to settle, find somewhere to live. As it was transitional, it was really transitional for quite some time, where I was being very conservative about how I used my money, whilst I started evolving things, workshops here, works here. Just it was really simple at first, but always having this clear intention. And but when you're connected to your calling, to what you're really about, this is the magic, the total and utter magic of feeling that you can do nothing else but this. And when you kind of accept that and stay dedicated to it, Nicole, I just, I made this radical choice just to trust. And, I had some savings, so I just tried to live simply. And I had enough coming in that I could just manage to, and not have to panic and find any old kind of job. Oh my God, what would I have done anyway? Honestly,
Mm.
done anything else. And
I love that.
one thing led to another, Nicole. And yeah.
Yeah, I really feel that you said that. And I'm really grateful for you bring that up, because I think one of the things that my women often feels is that kind of story of like, you can either have soul or you can have money. And that's quite a powerful story that often has them not choose into following soul. And yet in my experience, and as you've just shared there, is like when we make that deeper energetic choice to live fully from soul, that is rewarded, and that
It
we
is rewarded, and I really, because this is such a big deal for so many, and I really want to address this, which is I was really canny. This was, I made that jump to abandon my respectable life in inverted commas and menopause, having lived a sort of double life. And I don't mean that negatively at all. My psychotherapy practice was always pretty solid and good, and brought in steady income. And then on the side, I was developing the menstrual work. So I was running workshops actually in all sort, on the eastern seaboard of Australia, as well as not just in Sydney, but Melbourne, and then in Victoria, also up north in Brisbane, and so on. And getting, I was getting all sorts of gigs, if you like, and I was sort of secreting it a little bit into the psychotherapy world, and I'd have people come to me as clients because they knew about my menstrual commitment, and they were suffering, with cycle problems. And so I was quietly cultivating this, quietly, and saving my socks off for God knows what. I did not know I was going to get the call, stop being a therapist and, move back to the UK. I didn't know that was on the horizon. But I felt held by something. So you just have to be canny and smart, do not. I felt by the time I got to menopause, I felt somehow I had enough confidence in who I was and what I was doing with the menstrual work to dare to give up the day job, as I like to say. And I had from that moment at 48, when I had that realization, I just had to move back to the UK. I would go back to the UK, probably wasn't quite every year, but because my family were all there, my mother desperately wanted to see me. And I started putting out feelers to do workshops. And because I had the book, so that was a whole journey. I by then had my first book, Wild Genie. That got me an entree into alternatives in London. Magnificent organization, and honestly, I credit alternatives almost with all the things that eventually evolved, because that's where I met Sjanie at one of my workshops at alternatives. So when I would come to England, I would do a workshop at alternatives, and um, those workshops were so magical. They were so great, and there were so many great people that came through there that became allies for me. When I eventually jumped ship, so to speak, and came back to the UK. So I was quietly building something. And I didn't tell, for instance, I didn't tell my mother for a long time. I mean, she yearned for me to come back. And of course I did eventually say, but for a few years I told nobody, but I just held in my heart, you know, my intention and followed the clues, basically followed the clues, which were all these synchronicities that
I
occurred.
love that. I love it. So you basically you're a secret witch. You are hiding your magic.
Total and utter witch.
Bless you. And I think, yeah, like you say, there's a way of creating what's in alignment for us. It's just being open to seeing what that way is to creating it.
Yes, you do. You have to have a real patience and a discipline. Well, at least I found I had to.
But it sounds as well that like it's that deeper energetic choice of choosing to allow that to be fully expressed, I think is what I heard in that.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, Nicole. It was I made a choice to believe in what was coming through, and then I was smart. I always think of that. I don't know. Do Arabs ever use this proverb? I don't know, but tether your camel before you pray to Allah. Yeah, I tethered my camel before I started surrendering myself to the unknown. I tethered my camel in the sense of building up some resources, financial resources, so that I could dare to let go of respectable life, in inverted commas, and follow my calling.
I love that. I love that you were a secret witch who's now fully expressed as her witch queen. mm,
I would say so, absolutely.
yeah, yeah, beautiful. So where to go now? It feels like that we do have a question, by the way, from someone in our group. So maybe we can go there next and see where that leads us. So I shall read it to you. The question is there a specific meditation Alexandra recommends to help be at one with the menopause? I'm struggling to be at one with it because it's kicking my backside so hard that nothing seems to be helping. And recent blood tests show I'm really low on B12 and iron, and I've been taking supplements, so shouldn't be. But I think my block is from childhood and never being allowed to talk about periods, not being prepared for them, and then the same with the menopause. It's still a big taboo subject, and even though I'm very open, a lot of women still won't talk, so sharing our experience is still limited, and I need to get through this block, so wondered if there was a good meditation to help. Please also thank Alexandra for telling her story of the menopause, as it's so empowering and it touched home in many ways.
Um, wow. Well, whoever's asked that question, I just want to really acknowledge you. Thank you. And menopause does kick our ass. So, how do we help ourselves? How do we hold ourselves when we're going through the ass kicking moment?
Mm.
It's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant question. There isn't so much a meditation as uh, you do need allies, you need support if you're on your own. But it is, I'm really trying to sort of meet where this person is at. I'm going to say a number of things, and it might be a little rambly, so bear with me. But I'm going to start in a very practical way, which is what this person's already doing, which is really taking care of your health. And in particular, taking care of your nervous system. Because if you are exhausted, and you may well be, because menopause can disturb the sleep, and if you have night sweats, that will be disruptive of sleep. So we have to find ways to really nourish ourselves. And that nourishment on a very practical level is, the quality of the food we put in our bodies, but also, yes, very particular supplements. And I would check out the work of Lara Bryden here, Hormone Repair Manual, because she really specializes in, how to support us through she's a naturopathic doctor.
Fabulous.
And she's coming from a science background, and she's really useful things she shares. So I'm coming from the psycho-spiritual. But one's self-care is everything. But within that, this thing around our nervous systems and how we can soothe ourselves. Because if you're feeling really tired, and you'll probably be a bit adrenalized, and if you're not supported, so on and so forth. So I'm going to come in with very practical kind of meditation type things to do here,
Perfect.
to help just soothe your whole nervous system, because the more you feel soothed, the more resourced you will be to meet the ass kicking that's going on, because that has to be met. There's no way around this. You have to face yourself, and you don't want to be under resourced. You need allies. So the thing that um, what's just popped into my head is nettle tea on high strength. I got that from Susan Weed and her book, The Wise Woman Way. Um, your menopause years, The Wise Woman Way, or something. The New Menopause Years. That book is just fabulous for all the herbal stuff. And I swore, and I still swear by nettle tea, because it nourishes adrenals. And if you're exhausted, and if your nervous system is all jagged, you'll be all adrenalized. And nettle is a wonder herb. And I used to drink gallons, and I still drink gallons. It's a wonderful, wonderful tea. I buy it bulk, and I make it strong. And it's incredibly nourishing. But the key thing I wanted to get to is alternate nostril breathing.
Mm.
I would do that for 15 minutes a day. And now I didn't, and really I learned about it latterly with menopause, to deal with the night sweats that came. Because I didn't have hot flashes at all until right at the end, really, when I was moving countries and I was exhausted. It was huge to shift my whole life to another continent. And but honestly, it's the one thing I say to anyone going through menopause, alternate nostril breathing, because actually it reduced the flushing. It actually reduced it. It really settled my nervous system more, so it helped with sleep. And I use it now because I actually have quite, as in very demanding life. Amount of work we do, and I am nothing if not a powerhouse of, Sjanie and I together just never, we've just got so much creativity and ideas and ambition. We just love creating stuff, and of course we've gone through writing this book, and boy, 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 what it takes to write a book. Why do I do it? But of course I have to, because it speaks to me. So my self-care is fierce, and at the center of that is anything that soothes my nervous system. So alternate nostril breathing, and you can learn about it. Just go and Google, go onto YouTube, and you'll find excellent videos there on how to do it. And I would encourage you to do it religiously every day, once a day, possibly at night, as a way of soothing yourself after the day. And so that is one thing I do. But I also just take time at the end of the day with no stimulation. Turn off all technology, turn the phone off, I even turn the internet off. I might have some stories on Audible, something that's very soothing, nothing that's going to stimulate me. Because just looking at, social media or everything, it actually revs your system up. So you need to actually step away from all that. It's not even that you're working, it's just, having any kind of stimulation. So you need to have time where there's no stimulation, and ideally just being in nature. So you can down regulate your nervous system and come into that rest and digest place away from the fight and flight one. So just soothing, coming into yourself. And actually, I for someone like this person, I really think of our new book, Wise Power, as a real ally. When we were writing the book, I really had this feeling, even as I was saying very provocative and challenging things at times, always there was this energy of respect and kindness I was holding and soothing. And I actually wanted the book to be this like companion that's with you and can affirm that you are not going mad, and that the ass kicking you're going through is actually all part of it. It's very meaningful, and we help you in how to meet that. So the book is a real ally and support.
That's so beautiful.
And honestly, I mean, of course, I want people to buy the book because, of course, I've written a book and I want to earn some money from my work. Absolutely. So please buy my book. It would be so nice if you bought my book. But I want you to have that book because I believe that book is medicine for the soul. I wrote it with that in mind all the way through, how to hold you, to know that your life is important, to know that your life has meaning, and to support you in how to realize that. That was my deep, deep commitment. Well, the commitment not just of me, but of Sjanie as well. But because Sjanie hasn't gone through menopause, for me, it was deeply personal, having gone through it, holding that soothing all the time. So, and then yes, you may need to find some allies with whom you can share your process. And yes, if there are friends who just aren't willing to go there, don't push it. Don't push it. Perhaps you might even create the community that you want, or come to us and what the community that's growing at Red School around this. You might want to check out the resources that we have and to come into the Red School stream. And already we've got so much resource there, podcasts and things for people to draw on. And ultimately, I would say even our Menopause the Great Awakener online course will, because we have beautiful exercises there that really help you to meet the ass kicking moment and to move on from that, because it's not the whole of menopause, you see. There's a whole lot of other stages after that that are vital, and we talk you through that with teachings and then exercises in how to be in supporting you to meet it. I hope that answers this person's question sufficiently.
Yeah, I think that was a fabulous answer. Thank you so much. And I think that will be powerful for everyone who's listening to this as well, really, because I suspect they've got similar challenges as well. But I really felt what you said about your book being just created really intentionally from that deep, deep loving place as like an ally. Really felt that so deeply, because the way that I work is all about intention. And I just so feel that really powerfully, and in fact I'm definitely going to be buying that book regardless of the fact that I'm not in menopause.
It is written, by the way, for people who are, it isn't just for people in menopause, because we put menopause in context, and we, a good chunk of the book is the lead up to menopause. So if you're in your late 30s coming into your 40s, you need this book now to get in gear, to get in gear with how you are being prepared for menopause, actually from your very first bleed at menarche, because we start with menarche. But yeah, I mean, if you're in your 20s, don't buy the book. You're in your 20s, go out and party your socks off and just have a wild, do not think about it. And even in your early 30s, frankly, it's going to feel irrelevant. But you're going to feel some shift, at the end of your 30s and coming into your 40s, now this is when you need the book. And then so we do that whole preparation leading into menopause, and then we have a massive chunk on menopause itself. And then postmenopause as well.
From what you've shared, though, it feels to me very much like it would be beneficial for anyone who is in their soul work as well. It feels like it's almost like that. It's like that kind of that to me, what I'm hearing is very synchronous with what I share around literally being initiated into soul. There's that kind of ass kicking that you talk about. You often think that the path of soul is going to be really easy and wonderful and like, oh, roses, but actually it's very much very much
it's really nice that you've observed that, because I often, I have said to Sjanie, and we both thought this, that this book is actually about initiation. And
yes.
anybody, if you're dealing with chronic illness, really, you could actually just impose that on the book, and
Mm,
get insight into your initiation of illness. Or you're going through, I don't know, a huge ending of your life. You might have, there might have been a death that you've had to negotiate, or the end of a relationship that you had staked everything on, or perhaps dealing with infertility and feeling like, yeah, perhaps is not ever going to happen, and what that means.
mm,
There's all sorts of things,
yeah.
where life initiates us with, things we hadn't planned for, that life comes along and says, "Oh, sorry, mate, you're going to have this now." And it's how to alchemize that, really.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
mm,
I love that. It kind of brings us back to where we began with the wise woman, because that's very much what she's about. It's that kind of, yeah, that death and rebirth as well, isn't it? So,
it is, yes, that's how she's
mm,
through, being willing to face death, and not sort of kill oneself off, as in abandon oneself.
yeah,
Dare to choose oneself in the face of the undoing.
yeah, beautiful. I'm definitely very excited for this. Can't wait. Thank you so much. So, I think my only other question was, do you have any recommendations as to how women can celebrate themselves in this initiation? Just a quick one before we complete.
Funny enough, we're just creating this free resource, menopause remedies and resources, little kind of course that's going to be available for free. And one of the things we have in that, so suggestion we have, is to have two journals, one that's called the Rant Journal and the other that's called the Appreciate Journal. Because, of course, the Rant Journal is you just seeing all the shit of your life and the shit of the world. It just feels very kind of the shadow side stuff, as that. And you'll have very fierce feelings, like rage is one of the strongest feelings, and you've kind of just got to, either you spew it on the world, which is not ideal, or you just find some way to let it out in a way that's safe, um, that somehow acknowledges it. And so hence the Rant Journal, which you can burn at the end. You never have to read it ever again, but you've got to channel it somewhere, put it somewhere. But the Appreciate Journal is about a number of things, because it isn't just darkness at the early stages of menopause. You're actually going to have whiffs of freedom on the wind. You're going to sniff freedom, even as everything looks not good. And what are you going to do? And you're feeling crap. You'll get these glimmers of light in there. It's just that you're not stable in it. And to name those moments. You need to write them down somewhere, capture them, or you'll have, seditious ideas come to you. It's like, oh my God, yeah, like me, stop being a therapist. I mean, I wasn't in menopause at that moment, but that was a radical thought, because that's what I'd done I'd been a therapist for 20 years in the end by the time I stopped. You just like, what if I was to stop, abandon this work and just do what I freaking love, which is blah blah blah. You just really dangerous thoughts, and you need to put those somewhere, and that's what the Appreciate Journal is. So it's those possibilities, wild, crazy thoughts. Just even if they're totally crazy and impossible, you just note them down, and also that you really appreciate yourself, because you are in the rant phase. You're just going to see all the things you haven't done, all the ways you've failed, and your life's not looking pretty, and you're not looking pretty. But you've actually also got to consciously celebrate yourself. Damn it, you're alive. You've had a life. Of course you've done stuff. Of course you've earned a living. You've probably birthed a few children. you're probably possibly even supporting aging parents. Who knows all the extraordinary things that you've done just to get to this point. And you've damn well got to name all that. You damn well have just got to name it all for yourself. And it does help if you have friends that can remind you. I mean, I had that. Um, and to just celebrate yourself for being here, for getting here, for turning up every day to your children's needs or the job or whatever it is, or whatever you had to face that you faced. So, yeah, an appreciate journal, riding through menopause to deliberately celebrate yourself.
Yes, beautiful. That's gorgeous. I love that. Thank you so much, Alexandra. This has been, it was such an amazing episode. I'm really, really grateful to you to share all your wisdom with us. And just so magical. Where can people find out about you? I'll put all this in the show notes anyway, but if you just share a few ways that people can find out about you and your
Yes,
work.
our general website is redschool.net, and if you just even remember that, you'll be directed, to menopause stuff and to the book. But I believe, and I didn't double check this when I came on, but it's the link for the pre-sales page of the book, because you can order now. The book isn't out till September the 20th, but you can order now. You go to wisepowerbook.com, wisepowerbook.com, and yes, you can learn all about the book there, and you can order it from there if you want to. Um, and yeah, you'll find us on social media and all the usual places, Instagram, Facebook. Um, so if you go to redschool.net, that'll lead you everywhere.
Perfect. I believe we've got the links anyway, so we'll include that in the show notes of the episode. But
Yes, you could just double check all those. Yeah.
yeah, perfect. Thank you again so much. It's been a delightful episode. I'm loving it. So I'm definitely going to head now and order that book.
Thank you. That's what I like to hear, Nicole.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, Nicole. Thank you for the invitation. I've enjoyed it.
What an absolutely magical episode that was. My takeaways are: the menopause is ultimately an initiation that awakens the power within us, and really, it's a descent to soul. That means it isn't all smooth sailing, because unless you've done the deep work to connect to your wise woman via the power of your cycle, which makes it a smoother ride like Alexandra had, descents to soul aren't usually rosy. There becomes a clear no, along with an opening to your deeper calling, often at menopause, where you're being called deeper into your power and into your deeper purpose that is asking you to listen. And it becomes time to trust your body and its wisdom. Often women can experience this in the same way via the initiation of the wise woman, who can be initiated earlier via illness like chronic fatigue syndrome or some other deeper calling, where we learn deep lessons about listening to our bodies and their wisdom. Menopause can kick us in the ass as a rite of passage. It demands from us that we meet ourselves, and the invitation is to allow ourselves to be touched and moved, to not be in victim to our bodies, but to make a deeper choice to make something meaningful from the sensations. We have to trust that there's something wanting to come through us and drop out of our egoic agenda and trust the work of soul. It is often seen as a problem in our culture, and it can feel like we've been broken open in this initiation, but if we harness and trust our power there, it is so worth it. It opens us up to an incredible magic. Practically, we have to support ourselves through the menopause by tending our nervous systems, our bodies, and allowing our rage to express, whilst also celebrating ourselves and the magic that is unfolding. Ultimately, it's all a death and rebirth, as who our soul came to express us. That is the real magic of the menopause. If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.